Nancy Robinson is Executive Director of Citizens for Safety. Matt Lewis is a columnist for the Daily Caller. It's great to have both of you with us. Matt, let me start with you. Pretty interesting about-face there by the NRA and probably surprising a lot of people watching. But tell me why you don't think background checks or universal background check is going to work.
Well, first of all, has there ever been a worse spokesman than Wayne LaPierre? I mean, seriously. I like the 98 version of Wayne LaPierre a little bit better. But look, I don't have a problem per se with background checks, but the idea that it's a panacea, I just want to tell you it won't work. If you look at the three most recent high-profile examples, the Aurora shooter actually purchased his guns legally. In Newtown, the guy stole his gun, so the background check is moot. The only example where a background check might have changed things is in Tucson, but we don't even know. It's a counterfactual. If he couldn't have bought a gun legally, maybe he would have found it some other way.
All right. Now, you have a point there, and I want to ask Nancy about that in a moment. But first, even now, we've got limited checks, right? There's all these loopholes, Matt, in the background checks. Department of Justice says 1.9 million applications to buy guns were rejected. People were convicted of felonies. People had been indicted for crimes. And we're only checking 60% of people who buy guns. So how can you argue that better checks and blocking more people won't help? I mean, if we're blocking 1.9 million now, we'd be blocking a whole lot more. It's a whole lot of people who won't die.
Well, number one, I don't know if those numbers are exactly right. I've heard different numbers bandied about. But either way, it's irrelevant. Look, again, if you want to look at the three most recent examples of the high-profile cases, I think it's clear that in at least 2/3 of the examples, it wouldn't have mattered, okay? Now, the real story here is that most gun violence, there really aren't these high-profile cases. They're gang-related violence in places like Chicago. I'm not convinced that this would matter at all, but here's what I think the gun control proponents actually want.
Okay.
What they really want is gun registration, because that's how you could actually solve the problem. It just so happens that I think it's completely unconstitutional and would certainly go against the Second Amendment.
Nancy, let me ask you about something Matt said when he was saying, look, a lot of these horrific shootings, the ones which are causing this reform to gun policy in this country, may not have been stopped by background checks. The shooting in Newtown with Adam Lanza got the guns from his mother. Background checks probably wouldn't have changed anything in that situation. Is that relevant?
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me on, and I already agree with Matt. I also like the 98 version of Wayne LaPierre. No loopholes anywhere for anyone. I couldn't have said it better myself. Are we going to prevent every single shooting? No, but we can certainly do a lot more to prevent the majority of shootings that are happening in places like Chicago, Boston, Baltimore, LA, any big or mid-sized city in the country suffers from gun violence, mostly committed by people who do not have a Second Amendment right to have guns.
All right. Well, and Mayors Against Illegal Guns, Nancy, came out with a report. They call it Fatal Gap, and they're talking about even when there are background checks, there's all this stuff that isn't in there. I mean, this is going to amaze a lot of people. You know, Wayne LaPierre actually brought it up today, so we'll give him credit for that. 23 states and the District of Columbia have submitted fewer than 100 mental health records to the federal database. So if someone has a mental health issue or a substance abuse issue, it's not even necessarily going to come up in a background check. 17 states haven't even submitted 10, and 4 states haven't submitted any mental records at all. Isn't there a fair point to say that before we focus on expanding or universal, that we should enforce and execute the stuff we've got right?
Well, I think we have to do both. I think you're absolutely right. Background checks work. What doesn't work are loopholes in the system, and we have to do everything to close those loopholes. And the loopholes include updating our mental health records and including them in the background check system, and then also requiring background checks for all guns sold in this country. Right now, almost half the guns sold in this country don't even require a background check. So that means that you can go into a gun store and be denied and walk down the street or drive down the street to a gun show and stock up on as many guns as you want to and never have to take a criminal background check.
Matt, that's the thing I don't understand. Why is there a loophole for gun shows? I don't get it. If you're supposed to have a background check everywhere else, I mean, it should either be universal or not at all. This is one of those things, you know?
Right.
Like, you're not partially pregnant.
Right. I think that this has been a little bit overblown. If you buy a gun at a gun show from someone who is actually a business, they have to do the background check. But I think the bigger issue is individuals. So like right now, an uncle could sell a shotgun to his nephew, and there's no records of that. and there's no background check of that. And I think a lot of Americans think that that's perfectly fine and not a horrible thing. But that is really, I think, what they're aiming at closing here. But look, I think, let me just say, I think this is a couple of things. Number one, I think it's political. I think that the Obama administration wants to accomplish something. I think that they've seen that they're not.
Let me just interrupt you there, because it isn't just political. Because the polls, we just did a poll here at CNN. Americans, 92% of them say there should be background checks on gun stores, 87% on gun shows. I mean, the first three words of the Constitution are "we the people." That comes before. The second, I don't understand.
So because it comes chronologically before "shall not infringe," it's more powerful.
I mean, I'm being lighthearted about it, but I'm simply making the point: the people want this. So how is he being political? He's doing what the people want.
Public opinion has been wrong. Has been wrong before. I mean, by the way, I don't think that we should just do everything because of public opinion.
Matt, even your own readers, I think, disagree with your position. Even your own readers want
my readers are to the right of Attila the Hun. I mean, come on.
Well, I just, I've heard from them. I've actually heard from them.
No, my readers want guns assigned to people, mandatory. That's what my readers want at the Daily Caller. But let me just say, Obama knows he's not going to accomplish the so-called, these gun bans. So this is something that he can try to push through, and if Republicans don't vote for it, then they'll look evil and horrible, like Wayne LaPierre against Gabby Giffords, and he looked horrible, let's be honest.
But they're going against,
Matt,
they're going against the will of the majority of the people.
Exactly right. I published an op-ed in the Philadelphia Inquirer a week ago, and in it I outlined 3 things we could do to make our streets safer and dry up illegally trafficked guns. And I was braced, actually, for a barrage of angry emails from the people from the right, and I got nothing but praise.
I'm not. Look,
from
again,
people
I'm
who
not.
describe themselves
I'm not
as,
on.
Excuse me.
I'm not on principle. I'm not on principle.
Hold on, finish, Nancy, and then Matt can reply.
Thank you. From people who describe themselves as right-wing zealots or describe themselves as gun nuts, and they said they agreed with everything outlined, and basically what I outlined was threefold: background checks for all gun sales, increased accountability for gun dealers who arm criminals, and doing something to reduce straw purchasing in this country. And they agreed with all 3.
Final word, Matt.
So first of all, the straw purchasing thing, this will lead to gun registration. That's the bottom line, because how do you track the guns? They have to be registered. So that's really what this is about. The left wants to do that. But
we register our cars. I mean, I don't understand. What's the problem? If you're not going to do anything wrong with it, why do you care if it's registered? I mean, do you really think the government's going to try to steal it from you one day in a revolution? That's ridiculous.
I think you've proven my point. This is what you want, is gun registration. But by the way, let me just say, I think, as I did point out at the top of the show, that background checks aren't going to solve the problem. You can do it. I'm not against background checks. They're not going to do anything. It's not going to solve the problem. So
good.
All right. Well, thank you both for a feisty conversation. I appreciate it. It was fun talking to you.